Wow, I'm really excited. I just got this shipment of my Wahuda benchtop jointer, and this is the one that comes with carbide teeth for the cutting edge. Individual teeth, supposed to be quiet and give you a real smooth cut. I haven't used jointers a lot in my life, but I think it'll really improve my woodworking. So what I'm going to do, it's evening time right now, I'm going to take the parts out and lay them out and set them out for assembly. I'll probably continue the assembly tomorrow morning. So let's get started. As I open the box, you can see it's coming to me in really good condition. The styrofoam isn't dented, the box in good shape, everything looks like it's packaged real nicely. So I'll go now and get into it a little bit. Well, good news, a quick inspection shows it came out of its packaging. It seems like I have all the parts here. The only plastic part is the dust pickup, and it's not cracked or anything. I've got this is metal. I'm glad to hear that it's metal. And the guard here is also metal. And this here is the new steel top they have on these. And it's covered with a thin sheet of grease, and I'll clean that off and begin to do the assembly. So it looks like there aren't a lot of parts to put together, to be honest with you. So I'll put it up on my workbench so I can get to it a little easier. So here it sits on the workbench, ready for a little cleanup. The tabletop is coming in at, looks like 30.5 inches. The depth of the machine is right now, before I add any of the other parts, is 10 inches, and it's coming off the workbench at about 8 7/8. Here's a nice view of the lubricant or protective coat that's put on the top here, and what's called for is WD-40 to wipe it down maybe several times and then to wax it. So I'll be doing that WD-40 wipe down, and then I'm going to be using some of this Johnson's paste wax to cover this, and that will prevent rusting and also allow it to be very slick when you're running the wood over it. The first instruction asked you to take these 4 screws out with the Allen wrench that's provided, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The next step calls for me to take this fence bracket, set it here, and use these same nuts and Allen wrench to reinstall it. The next thing we're called to do is take this piece of equipment called the fence sliding bracket, and you get 2 of these, and you're supposed to put this little bolt through the hole, leaving the square part popping out on the other side. I assume that's where the fence is going to slide. So now when we put these on, it says to just go through, and when you get the square nut on this side, you just turn it about 3 times, finger tight. I assume because we need to have some space for that fence to slide on. So 1, 2, 3 times, and we're good to go. I have to say the quality of these instructions is just excellent. The book isn't some flimsy piece of tissue paper. It's printed on some almost card stock. So I'll go ahead. We have our fence here, and the bottom of the fence has a little dip in it here. That's where the cutting head's going to go. On this side we have a slot. You can see a square slot, and I'm supposed to thread the slot over this square head. Now you have to make sure the squares are in a good horizontal position to do that. I haven't tried this before. Sometimes you have to loosen the screw a little bit if it doesn't go in easily, but they're sliding pretty good. And I'll go ahead and slide it across and then catch it on the other side. And you can see it sliding through pretty good right now. So that piece is established. The instructions call for you to slide the fence until it's centered on the bracket and then tighten it down with these 2 little bolts. The only problem is, how do you know when it's centered? I went with this label and I got it right in the middle of this indentation, but to double check myself I measured from the bracket to the edge and I got 6 3/4 inches on both sides, so I know it's centered now. Now we're asked to take this sliding assembly and slide it right here and slide it all the way until it gets over halfway over the holes here on the table. After it gets there, then you're going to take this locking sliding bracket. Mine already was attached, and when you take this nut off, you're going to see that the nut is flat on one side and convex on the other. So it tells you to keep the washer here, thread it down through the slot, and have the convex, the rounded part, pointing down. And then you can go ahead and tighten just a little bit on there so you can catch the thread. And after you've caught the thread, you don't tighten it all the way down. It says then take and slide this all the way back, and that's what I just did. You've noticed I've turned the machine around, and it's called for loosening these two bolts below the guard, and you can see there's a slot in here, and then it says grab this, lift it, and then when you've lifted it, just take it on out. Set it aside. I'm going to attempt to adjust the infeed table, and it says you take this knob, this is the lock knob, turn it counterclockwise, that unlocks it, and then we can take this knob down here and begin turning it to go down, and it actually has an up down, and you can see it moving down, and it says take it down to its lowest spot, and there I am at the lowest spot. That's a 1/8 inch removal spot. The instructions call for you to take your Allen wrench and put it into this hole and turn, but there is no Allen slot in there, and luckily all we're trying to do is rotate this cylinder so you can easily take the Allen wrench and put it into this hole and rotate in this way. And what they would like us to do is start over here on the inside and turn it, and when the cutter comes around it's supposed to just barely touch that but not lift it. And if you noticed, it touched but it didn't lift. Watch again, here it comes. You'll see it right about now. Scrape, but it doesn't move. I'll do it again. Right here. You hear it? So it just barely touches. On some of these, like this one here, I'll back it off, and it might, you can just barely hear it scrape. And there it caught something. Let me do that again. I might have a little bit catch there, so I'll have to check that out a little bit. Hear it? But it doesn't move this. It's just perfect right out of the box. Excellent. I'm now attempting to get a 90 degrees on this fence, and I'm using both a square and this little device that's supposed to be perfectly square, and I'm setting them there. And I notice when I do that, I can take a piece of paper and it'll slide down and it gets stuck about right there on both of them. So actually that one's pretty good. So I don't even know if I'm being too picky here. Like I go down here and you can see that paper gets stuck there. So if it's off, it must be off by less than the width of a piece of paper. My paper test looks like it's coming in nice and tight. The paper won't slide under the base at all, and it won't slide down in any gap here, and the same goes with this square. So I think I've got that thing right at 90 degrees. Great. Now they've done a good job of coating all these metal materials with some type of oil protective substance. Your next job is to clean it all off before you operate the tool. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to take an Allen wrench and stick it in this hole here so you can rotate the head. And then you're going to take the torque wrench while you're holding the Allen wrench, and you're going to break loose the bolt that holds the cutter blade. And after you've done that, you're going to take very carefully, this is like handling a razor blade, you're going to take that cutter blade and the screw, and I put a magnetic metal holder here, and I'm going to drop them in here because this is filled with mineral spirits. I'm going to let them soak in there. I'm going to take each one off and go around and keep removing them until I have them all in here soaking. And then I'm going to wipe them clean. After that, I'm going to take mineral spirits and clean off this whole head and dry it really good. And then I'm going to take a little bit of compressed air and blow it in each of the holes to blow out any of the mineral spirits that has settled in those holes. And finally, I'll take some of this machine oil and put a little bit on each thread, and then put the cutting blades back into place. When I do that, I'm going to be very careful to index them. In this case, there's a number 1 in the top corner here facing the fence, and I'm going to keep that consistent as I go around, so the day will come when I want to change these, I can keep rotating them, keeping those numbers in mind. So again, in summary, I'm going to turn this around, break the bolts loose, take out the knives and the bolts, separate them and put them into mineral spirits, and then I'm going to clean off the head, and then I'm going to blow the paint thinner mineral spirits out of each hole. I'm going to lightly oil the threads and then put them back down in here, holding the indexed knives down with the numbers in proper order. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do it off screen. You do it to yours. I now have all the cutters and bolts removed. I'll be cleaning them off. I will tell you that using that torque wrench to get them out, they are really very, very tight. So the book tells you when you tighten them back in, you're supposed to use something like 50 pounds per inch of pressure to put them in. I have no idea what that is, but it tells me that they were in there very tight and you have to put them back in very tight. So I'll continue with my cleanup job now. Well, it took me about 45 minutes to clean all of these knives off and lubricate them properly and tighten them back in there. And then finally I added the guard, and there's a way you can kind of turn it and then seat it again so it has a proper spring action to get it back in place. So I guess it's time to crank this thing up and see what it can do. So for my first cut, I'm going to try this piece of zebra wood that's really scuffed up on this side, and this other side, I don't know if you can see that, but it's really scuffed badly and the edges are pretty bad. So I'm going to go ahead and try this and see what happens. Well, here's the result of my first attempts. I have a little bit of fuzz here, but I think that's the nature of zebra wood. It is very smooth. The edges are just perfect. And if I set this up, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's just dead on 90 degrees. And this edge is so sharp you can almost cut yourself on it. So that's exactly what I was looking for. Okay, it's onward to a whole bunch of nice projects. Thank you for watching.